Welcome to Thrivecast. With me, I have Christian Nielsen. I met Christian through a mutual friend, and he lives in Copenhagen, and I wasn't aware about the startup scene in Copenhagen. And then Christian and we met several times before this, and we've exchanged some really interesting conversations on PLG, on self-serve, on abuse prevention, and a whole bunch of other things. I have Christian here. Christian, welcome to our podcast. And maybe if you could introduce yourself.
Of course. Thank you very much. Thank you for having me. Yeah, my name is Christian, and I'm the Chief Product Officer with uQualio. And I've been a co-founder, so I have been in on the full journey from sort of the idea, the first MVP, and the first customer going live. And now here, more than 7 years down the road, we can see that we have a product that is used by multiple customers around the world. And at the same time, we're still connecting back into the startup scene because we are sort of trying to find out how do we take and simplify the onboarding process? How do we make things product-led? And this is, to be honest, very hard. And I think that'll be part of our discussion today.
Yeah. So, Christian, maybe if you could explain a little about your company, your product.
You are uQualio. You qualify, you quality, your qualifications. This is sort of the idea that was put into the name. And we have had some challenges, especially with Danish pronunciation of the name, because uQu is a very un-Danish pronunciation. It's a very hard syllable. It's very hard combined. But as soon as people, they hear, oh, you, because they know U2, for instance, then they say, oh, yeah, I see it. So with English speaking, the name has been pretty easy. What we do is video learning. So try to think of YouTube, but without the commercials and the selling the data and everything, but having a private platform where you can share and control your own videos. And then you can use them for, let's say, your private video training. It could be onboarding. It could be an academy. You could stick QR codes to your products. And then people take their smartphones and scan them. And bang, suddenly they have the newest version, always updated. And they even have the ability to give you feedback through their cell phone if necessary. So think of it as like your own private video training platform / library. And then it can go out to anything that's connected. So that's what we do with our platform, with uQualio.
That's beautiful. And I believe you started this around 2017, 2018. So it's almost 6-7 years now.
It's 7 years. Yeah, that's correct. So in that respect, we have sort of passed the age of the early startup, but we have also done a couple of learning points. And especially on the sales approach and the product development approach, we have sort of zigzagged. And every zig costs a sack. And that takes a little time and some more money to burn the cash to get back to where you want it to be and sort of move in that direction. But we have 7 years down the road as a company. And the first customer went live in February 2018, and they're still a paying customer.
Wonderful.
So that's a pretty good stickiness, you might say.
Yeah. And tell me a little more about, maybe we'll get into the PLG aspects, the self-serve aspects. Tell me a little more about Copenhagen or Copenhagen.
Copenhagen.
Yeah.
Not Copenhagen. I know that in a couple of English movies, they use that pronunciation, but it's Copenhagen. Or as we say, København.
That's right. Yeah, I've heard of that, from a few of from the movies itself. I've never been to Copenhagen, so it's a little difficult for me to imagine. So how's the startup scene there? Are there a lot of startups?
There are a lot of startups, and there are many areas where people can say there are incubators, there are accelerators, there are investments into areas like if you do health tech, med tech, fintech, ed tech. So there's around each of these areas, there is a cluster of companies and different accelerators, some kind, also funds, investment funds, VCs, some of the stuff that the government does, and trying to pull life into it. And at the same time, a lot of them also have close relations to the universities. And it means that many universities, like both the Copenhagen Business School, the Danish Technical University, and the IT University of Copenhagen, they run courses in being an entrepreneur and a startup. And they are very happy when we as companies, especially startups or scale up, we come and visit them and help the student with projects and real life views into some of the stuff they learned in the books and in the more classical training type. So that respect is a thriving scene. I don't know much about how it works, for instance, in details in the US, but in general, we find openness and interest. because we see that some people, they have a great idea and they have lots of knowledge, but they haven't tried it before, or they have maybe misguessed the total total available market, the tom and all that stuff. And we're telling them, it's just for small. If you do like this, you need this much money to run it, but you're saying the market is only this big. Do you really expect to get 90% of the addressable market? And then sometimes, you help them a little, and both in terms of the business side, but from my personal viewpoint, I'm from the technical side. So it's a lot about what is maybe the right technology, what should they do, what should they not do. Or we tried this and it worked for us in this case, but I would not recommend it for this. So there's a lot of sharing going on.
Okay.
And
yeah, so I have a question on that part, right? So I think that I've met with a lot of founders in Europe, at least in the last maybe 3 to 4 years or so. I met folks in Munich, in Germany, Lisbon in Portugal, Spain, a lot of areas in Spain, France, and of course UK. There's a thriving startup scene. There's a lot of accelerators. There's a lot of VC companies. I'm a little curious on Denmark. More and more companies, a few people that I've met, most of them are bootstrapped. Most of them have not taken any funding, or even if they have taken funding, they've taken very small funding. But they are surviving. They are kicking. They are eating it. They are growing, tepidly, but they are surviving. Tell me a little more about, in that front, how has been growth in where, especially if you have a bootstrap startup like yours. Yours is a bootstrapped one, right? So someone like a bootstrap company these days, it's very difficult to find, especially in the West Coast in the US. That's where I live in. To find bootstrap companies, you'll find they'll take seed funding, or their rich founder, they will deploy money towards it, or you'll start to go very big with VC money. And then if you survive, that's good. If you don't survive, okay, that's about it. Close shop and then go start a new one. So the recycling of the talent happens quite a bit here on the west coast of US. I'm a little curious about how it happens in Denmark, and I'll tell you why I'm asking this. Because the strategies that you took to growth, the GTM motions that you did, are they correlative to how you potentially could grow because you're essentially bootstrapped?
yes, it relates a lot, because what we see is that there are many smaller companies here in Denmark. They are either bootstrapped or they are financed through angel investments or family offices. So they're not traditionally funded in terms of the seed ABC rounds or from venture funds. There are grants from the government that you can get at a reasonable interest rate, and you don't have to give equity, but then there will be, first, if you get any money, they'll be first and stuff like that. So there's a tendency that people, they try to get along a little longer than they do, for instance, in, just take our neighboring country, Sweden, or especially the US. We're not that open to say, hey, somebody's coming with loads of money, let's go for that. We have seen some cases about how people have ended up having a cap table that was ruined too early, or maybe diluted too early. And then you say, okay, so you want me to work 80 hours a week for 5% of the company because I, been diluted in every step along the way.
Yeah.
So I think there's a skepticism, and this is my personal conceptions. I'm not sure it's valid, but that people are a little more withholding in terms of taking offers, taking money in, etc. Yeah, I think that's sort of the short answer. The little longer answer will also include that we have some taxation here in the country that as a founder can make it, if you have too little, you will be taxed to hell and back,
Okay.
even of something which has a value of 0.
Okay. I
And
understand.
that
I think that's why.
they fortunately, they just changed it this month, and they made it partly retrospective for other founders.
Yeah.
But that meant that if you had too little of the company, if you owned less than 10% of the company, and it went public or it got sold off at a very high multiplier or price, then you would suddenly have to pay tax of money you have never realized.
Yeah.
Everybody
Yeah.
says, or at least I think it's fair to pay tax of realized profit and loss. That's fair. But to pay real money of unrealized profit and loss on a yearly basis, That's not the way. So
Yeah.
that has fortunately been changed. So
Yeah.
that is also
Maybe that's why you see that some of these SaaS founders, they will grow 2, 3 years in Europe. And then once they start scaling up, they will change the headquarters to US, right? So that the
yeah,
taxation
yeah,
laws and the laws here will apply faster.
yeah. So because at least I would say if you have less than 10% with the old rules in Denmark, it would make no sense to sell out because you might end up with an enormous step for tax on something that you never realized.
Got it. Got it. Okay.
So that's a tough
Yeah.
thing.
So let me switch over to your product and on the GTA motion that you did. So could you tell me a little more about when you and, I think you have a co-founder as well.
Yeah.
When you guys started the company together, how did you get your first set of customers? What is it that you did to get them interested and they signed up and you closed the deal? What stage of the product it was? And was it a PLG self-serve motion at that time that someone comes and signs up to the product? Or did you and your co-founders actually went and knocking on your potential prospects' doors, asking them if it's relevant for them?
Yeah.
Tell us the story on that.
I think to tell the story right, you need to know a little about sort of the starting point we have
Uh-huh.
in our product. And we believe that learning should be easy, accessible for everyone. And the way that people are learning with YouTube and Vimeo and similar platforms is great. The only thing is you cannot control the content. And for you as a private person, that's probably okay. But if you're a corporate or NGO or the body who needs to have
Uh-huh.
things out, you really want to know, where is your content used and where is it being placed? And at the same time, you would like to see, did people see it? Can I do qualifications? Can I do
Uh-huh.
compliance training? Can I find the people who took the version 7 of the software training and now upgrade them to version 12? Because the difference between those two. So that means that you need some sort of learning platform or user platform, etc. And we looked hardly at the market and said, that is so bloody expensive that small and medium companies, they will not be able to, buy a license of something. Or even if they take a free product like Moodle, it is not really directed at the corporate sector. So that's sort of the starting point. It should be reasonably affordable. It should be a fair price and it should be pay as you go because we don't want to lock people in for 5-year contracts with stuff they're never going to use.
Uh-huh.
If they like the product, stay with us. If you don't like it, you can cancel at the end of your current subscription period.
Got it.
So that is sort of, you can say, the foundation. And at the same time, we say we're also a profit with a purpose. So even though that we are charging a fair price, a very low and fair price for the corporate customers, we should be able to have something that we can give back by giving the platform for free. So that meant that these were sort of the points. But as you know, customers, they don't come by themselves, even if you have a nice website, because it talks too much about yourself and not the product, not the value. So the first couple of customers were not quite in the category friends and fools, but people that one of the former co-founders, he also knew. So we managed to get hold of them. We sold
Uh-huh.
them the idea. And the first customer then said, you know what, we'll try it out.
Got it.
They
So,
they paid for it, but
and they
it
paid
was,
for it before they used it, or they paid for
yes,
it
yes.
after you pitched it to them?
They bought the idea and
Okay,
they said,
wonderful. So
it
let
was
me let
like
me summarize. Let me understand what you just said. You built the product not purely self-serve at that time, right? Even though you might have had some of the architectural principles of maybe signing up and potentially trying, but you and your co-founders knocked on the doors of a couple of agencies or
companies,
essentially corporate
corporates.
companies, right? And you were able to impress upon them that, hey, this is something that you could use. You did some kind of a pricing. Maybe you
We told them,
negotiated.
yeah, exactly. It's like, is this fair for this and
Yeah,
that? Yeah.
yeah, got it. And they, and if that was working, why did you enable your product to become a lot more self-servable? I know the concepts about why you could have potentially done it, but you could have gone the completely a sales-led approach. You could have hired one or two more sales guys, your co-founder, and maybe a sales or an SDR could knock on a little more of the doors and close the deals. You could have gone that route,
We we
yet
we could.
you went with a PLG self-serve motion.
Yeah, we did. And the reason is, again, maybe going back a little to the inspiration. I don't know if you know the book called The 4-Hour Work Week by Timothy
Oh yeah.
Ferriss.
Yeah.
That was a great inspiration because all of us in the founding team, we were like mature professionals. We had 20, 30 plus years from corporate. So we said, having a big organization, we know that we want something that is as automated as possible. And that's why the sales organization or the sales-led organization did not really appeal to us, because we would then end up having a sales manager, maybe regional sales teams. That would be some SDRs, that would be some customer success managers following up on the bigger clients, etc. And we looked into that. Then we saw, even though that we might keep engineering and daily support relatively small due to the distribution of teams and the ease of access to cloud services, then we would end up having a relatively large sales organization. And then we would have the organization layers, the meetings, the feedbacks, the KPIs, etc.
Okay.
And then we said, that's not really what we would like to do, because we would have something that's sort of maybe not 4 hours per week, but let's say not necessarily full time. And when you're working, you should work with the product or the customers, not internal focus on KPIs or meetings or status or sales strategies, etc.
Okay.
So that's
it became a very conscious decision for you to keep the teams lean and then still continuing to grow. And maybe that's the reason it's both a lifestyle choice and keep the team small, so that you're
yes,
connected to the customers, you're connected. And that's what was your primary inspiration, rather than, build a larger internal team, sales processes, build like a CRM task force, and then go after customers at scale.
exactly. Because
Okay.
we could see that that's a very good way to go with some products. It's a very good way to go for some founders and some companies. But we were, experienced. We said, what makes us tick is that we help people learn. We help people get things out. As long as you have a phone and an internet connection, you can learn, you can get feedback, you can improve, you can make them smile when they go home because they learned something new or they managed to fix a problem they didn't fix before, instead of, spending time talking to the guy in the US, the guy in the Africas, etc., etc. And then we also did the math, because if you want to make a product that has price point like the one we have, you really need to sell a lot, and you will end up having a very expensive sales organization that might have to sell, let's say, 100 accounts instead of one large account. The cost of getting one account is probably much higher than hundreds who are self-serviced, maybe through the inbound funnel, maybe even product-led in terms of growing the MRR after they signed up, etc. Because they say, I can add another channel. What's the value of another channel? $49 extra a month. Oh, let me check that. Click, bing. And then we sort of, add a few percent points. So it was simply also doing the math of the organization and the complexity and saying, yes, but then it doesn't make sense for us to chase rabbits. We should go after deer or maybe even elephants. If you know that analogy of,
Yeah.
if you want to make $100 million, you need to find out if it's rabbits, deer, or elephants. I think there might be one in between, but that's where we said we would like to go for the deers and maybe a little smaller. And that
Got it.
also meant we looked at the customer lifetime value, the customer acquisition cost, and the time to recover the customer acquisition cost. And we could see that the medium to large accounts we had so far cost so much more than the few we had coming in through the inbound.
Got it. Tell me a little more about, your pricing. You mentioned $49. Is it per user?
No, my God. No. This is actually the question, because our standard pricing point for what we call the pay-as-you-go model, which is the one we normally sell and which is on our website, that's $2 per active user per month.
$2 per active user per month. Then
Then you
what
can
is
add some extra.
$49? That's the bare minimal that you take, is it?
I think no. Actually, we start at $19.99. So 10 users is the minimum for $20 a month.
Got it. Okay.
And
Got
and
it.
and then you can add more stuff. You can prepay. You can go up and down. You can say, oh, I want to have 20 channels because you have many brands. You do one
Okay.
channel per brand, and suddenly you can
Okay.
manage, etc. But the base is $20. And that also means that you can see, like I said before, if we sell 100 at $20 a month and we do it for 24 months consecutive, that's good. But if we only say sell one at $10,000 every second month, that will never pay off. So
Correct.
these were also some of the numbers that we put into the equation when we start looking at the organization.
Super. Yeah, I think, Christian, I think for the listeners, we will actually also put in a PLG model. So we have a calculator for if your price point is low, or like what Christian is saying, and which means that you need a lot more customers. PLG self-serve becomes your natural ally in terms of the GTA motion. So we will add it as part of the show notes as well.
I think that's a good idea because this is where we got sort of the price model and the cost and the metrics. We got those pretty early. And then we could see that internally we were discussing a little, do we really mean inbound sales, product led as the primary, or is that just something we say to streamlining and keep the product simple? And it also turned out that this is where one of the co-founders about 4 or 5 years ago, he decided to leave for different reasons. But one of them was that he said product led and inbound, but every time he met someone, it ended up like a small ERP sales. We just need this little feature and then they'll buy it.
Yeah.
So I made the feature, they didn't buy it, and I didn't finish the feature because,
Yeah.
when you work with products like ours, it's a cooperation with the customers. So they say they want it, they start using it, we fix the things we didn't find in the first go or the use cases we didn't cover, and at the end, everybody's happy. But when there's no customer because they didn't materialize or they didn't have the budget or, oh, this was just something we did to understand the price policy for budget 2022, and then in 2022, the budget didn't, the project didn't come on top of the final budget. So, it didn't realize. And we spent loads of time doing work on those cases.
Yeah, I think that's a good learning. I think that happens a lot in the sales-led companies, and I've been to a couple in my career as well. The sales team will go ahead and maybe try pitching that, hey, you don't have this. If we build it, would you buy it? And sometimes they would try to go sell, and the customer has really two decision points at that time. I'll buy it when you have it, right? Which means a couple of months later. That's when the sales team is pushing your engineering teams, your product teams to go build, right? But not necessarily sell. The second option is some of the good sales guys that I've seen is, this is what we have, right? You buy it and we'll give you this. If you see that there's an issue, we will force maybe a discount or something for the first maybe 6 months to a year's time until you find the appropriate value, right? But we'll need a commitment from you, right? In the next 1 or 2 days. And they're able to go close much faster than the sales guy was saying that, I'll take this as a feature request and then we'll come back to you, right? And the deal never closes at that time.
That's a really good picture because that's what we learned, because none of the sales that were sort of pulled in through this approach one materialized. And when we go sit over a cup of red wine or a glass of coffee or the other vice versa, then we say that has cost
or mix
us.
the two.
Or mix it, red wine. Yeah, no, maybe not. That's, I would probably not like that. But okay. No, then we say that approach or that switch from one closer to two, because we didn't switch early enough, because we still chased the bigger clients, even though we said the small ones, small, medium size are actually our target segment. That has cost us at least 1 year.
Yeah.
Of being more product led, being more mature, being more adapted to the tech and the SaaS segments where we see the quickest and the best adaptation rate for a product like ours. At least 1 year, maybe even more.
Got it. So it took you at least a year after you have the baseline product for the customers to really come in and try for themselves and then sign up, try, and potentially even buy. Tell me a little more about, that particular motion. So in the beginning, when your founders were selling, you might still have had some things, how did you make the market aware that a product like yours exists and that they can come and sign up?
It's like when people don't know what they really need, they don't know how to Google it.
Yeah.
That was, especially in the first couple of years, that was really hard, because we went to a lot of companies and they said, yeah, video. Yeah, it might work for us. And then we spent a lot of time with those people and they ended up saying, oh, that's too expensive. We need to hire a production company. We don't have any in-house video expertise, etc. And then when we still did a little qualification of leads and reaching out ad hoc once in a while, we created a checklist. And then we said to the young people we had helping us with it, you know what, when you check these companies, if they don't have a single video on their website, if they don't have a YouTube channel, drop them. Don't even talk to them.
Yeah.
Don't even, drop them from the list. Don't put in the potential leads for further qualification. They need to have evidence in the public space of video usage.
Okay.
No matter how nice or big or potential we thought they were, if they don't already have something with video, get it.
Okay. So you're essentially optimizing, you're essentially selling the story to your clients that you're already doing something, right? Use uQualio and you'll be able to go do this much faster, much cheaper, and
Exactly.
a lot
much more controlled. You have full control of everything. One of our partners is a company here in Copenhagen called 23. They're one of the world's largest video webinar platforms. And they also do a marketing video platform that we are utilizing, that we're integrating with. And they have a case from one of their customers in Germany who said, we do this self-service where people can order everything. And they created the small product videos, the manual videos, all the stuff you needed. And then from their sales area, from the catalog, the product, you picked it, you added it to your shopping baskets, etc. And then when you wanted to see how it worked, it went to YouTube. And then the first thing they got was 8 seconds video from one competitor and then 7 seconds from another competitor. And then their video was displayed.
Okay.
So this is typically where we say, oh, you already have some stuff in video, but it's on YouTube. Have you thought about this? And very often when you talk to the business people, either the sales and marketing people who are generating the revenue, or the support or customer success managers who's trying to keep customers happy and minimize the long-term cost of having a customer, they are in the front line and they understood this right away. Whereas when you talk more to the staff functions, HR, learning and development, they typically were the wrong people because this was not their day-to-day job. They didn't have a face-to-face with a potential customer or with a customer with a problem.
Got it. So essentially, instead of you, I'm guessing this is what you did, right? I'm trying to read between the lines there, that you found out, your potential leads who have some video production. You pitched it to them through some kind of a marketing, some lead gen campaign, and then say, hey, you're already doing this is your value proposition. Use uQualio and you'll be able to go optimize it, reduce the cost, do it cheaper, do it faster, and all of that. But you're selling it to the users who are actually building the videos, right? You're not selling it to the founders of the company or the execs of the company. You're essentially selling it to the end users who are who'd be willing to go and say, hey, this makes a switch easier. $2, a month, and we are 10 of us. $20 a month is a lot more cheaper than you. So, is that how you did your PLG marketing?
Part of it, yeah. Because we try to say, come on, you already have it. Why don't you get these added benefits? And it's probably even cheaper. And if you already made the videos and you deployed them on the website or on YouTube, you just bulk upload them to our platform. And then you have, a few clicks and then you have the first version of the courses. Then you do internal review or you put QR codes on your products. And then a question is missing. We add some question, release. There's a link needed here, blah, 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 update. And because we also can do deep links into software products, it's actually possible to create a small video tutorial. And then when the person has sort of seen the video on how to, let's say, export an invoice to a third party's platform, they can actually take the link directly from the video into the platform and click the button, which is export, select, blah, blah.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah.
No, sorry, you were saying something.
And these were like the people we were trying to reach out to. And very often they ended up and say they really wanted something. And then we could see, because it was not self-service enough, they could not see how the product worked for them. Then we started optimizing the onboarding, and we also did a closer integration with our CRM system, because previously our CRM system and the application were not linked. So that meant that you might have some conversation going on in the CRM system or in Outlook or with some chat features or LinkedIn or whatever. But we didn't know if they were coming from a trial, so they already tried the product. We don't know if they did a trial, how far did they sort of come, what boxes did they check off in our sort of maturity or lead scoring, you might say. And this came about maybe a year and a half later. We started doing it with a CRM system called Agile CRM, which had these opportunities to integrate very easily. And then when we switched to HubSpot about 4 years ago, we said, let's check the API. And it turned out that they have a pretty easy API. So now they come to the website. Hopefully they understand, hey, this is something I should try out or maybe even buy. They create the free trial account. And then simultaneously, the contact is created. There's a deal created. We're able to run the email automation. We were able to pull in marketing data, like, the company based on the domain, if they're not using Gmail, etc. So now we see a much tighter alignment of the process. And this is where I would say one of the learning points, and me as a technical person sometimes have a challenge understanding that, and that is that the UX is 80% of the initial perception of product.
Mm-hmm.
Because if they don't have this smooth operation into the system, if they don't get, held in the hand while they try out to publish the first course or to invite Christian and Guruja for the meeting, etc., so they can try it out, then they're not confident. Then they're not going to their boss or to the coworkers and say, hey, isn't this something to use with our products and the QR codes or the video training we talked about for so long? And you know what? It's only $20. Let's try it out.
Got it.
So I have to admit that I have been a little too slow in that as a technical person. I think it's cooler that we can send 1,000 emails in less than 10 minutes, and that it's possible to slice and dice the data in a pivot table and create charts and everything. Then maybe saying, is the initial experience as part of the product-led approach, is that also, yeah, this is not too bad. I'll show it to my coworker, or I might create a small budget and a small demo for my boss.
Got it. Okay. So let me summarize what you just said. Your marketing would go and initiate reach outs to accounts who may not necessarily be aware, either to your website or to your sign up page. They will sign up, and you invested in the sign up and trial, aspects very early on. You realize that if you don't help them navigate to the activation, right? Activation journey, onboarding and all of that, you're going to have a drop off. So the UX investments were extremely critical for you to help them navigate to the end result or the aha moment, if you will.
Correct.
Once you got that, behind the scenes, you were able to track who these users are. You and your co-founders and your team would be able to go sit and, on a monthly basis, weekly basis, you'll be able to see what journeys have they accomplished, have they set this up or not, right? And if they drop off, would you take any action to reach back to them, re-engage with them?
We would try that through emails, because what we see is, they did not move further than create the account and successfully enter their basic details. Okay, why didn't they come further? Then once in a while, we would then study, we'll start a different place. We'll see, based on the account name, based on the email, can we guess what is this? And we did a couple of paid campaigns, and suddenly we got people who came in and answered the question, why have you made a free trial of this video platform? And two of them were, I'd like to learn how to hack security cameras.
Hey.
And then we went back and checked the keywords, and the keywords we bought the Google Ads with. And it turned out that they came from security compliance training. The people who came from these keywords were not people who were interested in teaching other people or to make sure that their coworkers had something. No, there were people who wanted to learn how to hack security cameras, and you had security compliance and training. That sort of gave them a pretty good ranking on Google, basically because we also paid for getting them to the top of the search result. So we adjusted the search words, and then suddenly we didn't see them anymore. So there's a lot, and this is where PLG and inbound marketing and A/B testing merged together.
Yeah.
And maybe you can confirm this, but to be honest, that has been the hardest part in terms of finding the right person for the job, the right resources. Because a person who knows enough to see all that, maybe not know all the details in all of the tools, but know it so much that he or she understands the product, the market, the journey, and is able to engage both with the graphical designer, with the psychologist who are looking at the web page from a UX design, and with the engineering manager to say, you need to change these colors, people cannot see them. Or there should be only 3 elements on this page because we can see that the mouse is running around and they don't click anywhere because they're not drawn to one object. That's the
Yeah.
hardest person to find in a startup team.
And that is the biggest challenge. I think attracting your leads, your prospects to come and sign up, that's probably one of the hardest part. And that was typically relegated to marketing, right? But now you have to keep on fine tuning who's going to come in, what's your ICP.
Yeah.
And that's a very difficult thing. Paid ads, over a period of time have slowly started, declining in terms of the return of investment. You're not getting that much traffic based on the amount that you spend. So people have started using email marketing, campaigns, go directly to the mailboxes, go directly to the LinkedIn post or on your primary ICPs. So that's very interesting. Let me actually ask you a couple more things, right? So you, as a technical founder, you focused on the self-serve infrastructure, you built the onboarding, you focused on the analytics, meaning who's coming to your product, where are the drop-offs happening, how are they using your product, and all of that. And then the lead scoring part of it, how did you go manage that?
That was a combination of updating HubSpot based on the steps they did.
Okay.
Because initially, and this is one of the things we have adjusted along the way, we made the assumption that just because somebody made a free trial, they were a marketing qualified person, or maybe even a sales qualified lead, MQL or SQL, as it's called. And then when we started doing backwards analysis, we could see, no, they are only a lead if they create a free trial. There has to be something else before we can upgrade them to an MQL or an SQL. And this is where we change from, you can call it the completely automated, just put them in, to say every time somebody came in and created a free trial, we checked the need. And if we could see, hey, they used a company address, we can find the company, we can even find the person on LinkedIn, then we would upgrade it to marketing qualified. Then we would maybe hold back the second part of the automation mails and then try a manual outreach based on what they answered to the questions we pose in the onboarding, or what we could learn from their websites or from the LinkedIn profiles. And if that sort of resonated, they responded or anything, or they booked a meeting with us. This is the only time we would allow people to book meeting with us before they get closer to a sale. Then they would be qualified as a sales qualified lead.
Got it.
But not starting out as marketing qualified as we initially did. That was a huge mistake.
Yeah.
In terms
I
of the
think
quality of the
that's
data.
what most companies are doing it. So I'm seeing a disturbing trend. Signal-based selling is what's been referred in the market. Anyone who visits your website or attends a webinar or downloads a white paper or checks out a particular page, like pricing page or some other pages, automatically becomes a signal, and the marketing team will go say, hey, these are marketing qualified, right? And I think those days where marketing was able to run through this, when the market was not this broad, not that competitive, it was okay to do something of that sort because the leads were very few, you could go after them. Now people are just visiting for the sake of visiting. They are, visiting for educating themselves. They are visiting to understand competition. So they, almost 70-80% of them are not even close to being qualified. So I think what you're saying to me is that the best qualified one is the one who's actually signing up to your product and signing up to your trial, but not just coming and visiting your website, or for that matter, just even signing up. If they haven't enrolled into a trial or they don't have any interest. Is that right?
Yeah, that's we've been a little more. I would say we're filtering harder away. because we need to say it's better to spend more time on fewer people moving forward in the funnel
Yeah.
or in the qualification than just thinking, this guy, he came back and now we should try to re-engage with him. Maybe not. What we see is that people, they tend to we have like open rates between 15 and 30 of the things we're sending out, which is reasonable. We can see that most people on a different mailing list, they open at least one item per year. So they are not, we don't throw them out. We do a cleanup, spring clean every year just to make sure that they reconfirm if they haven't engaged with us. But what we see is that we're trying to keep them a little aware of what we do. And as I don't recall who said it, but there was a HubSpot webinar in the beginning of 24 where the guy said, when you work in this type of marketing, what you need to remember is that all the people you engage with, and this falls into what you just said earlier, 95% are not looking for your services right now. 5% might be it. But what is important is that you make sure the 95% who don't look for it now, when they need it or need something similar, you will be at the top of their mind because you're still engaging with them, like giving them a freebie once in a while, inviting them for a webinar on a general thing that is not, how to say that in a polite way, it's not like pushing your product down their throat, but you're saying, hey, this tells you a little about why TVI actually is a good idea and why video works for TVI. And by the way, we have a video platform that works better because I'm teaching you a little. I'm teaching about how does Deming and his approach to workplace, work process analysis and statistical management, how does that relate to what you can do with training today, maybe video-based training? And then this is sort of a better way because people, they read the blog and they see, oh, that was a good one. And maybe at the bottom, by the way, video is a good training. So we give them some valuable input. And that seems to be, at least in this term of focus, more important than trying to sell every time you engage with the client. Potentially.
That's very, I think that's the very right approach. Educative content is probably worth more of its salt than just sell, right? So let me ask maybe a couple of questions there. So maybe if you can tell a little more about what's your monthly sign-up rates looks like and what's your general conversion looks like. And then I'm going to go, ask, one more question about the prevention of the abuse. You have a beautiful feature within your product, that I learned quite a bit from you,
Okay,
about a week and a half back or so.
That's right.
But
That
tell
was
me
a good
before that,
session.
tell me what's your sign up to conversion ratio or free to premium conversion ratio at this moment?
We have around, I think, 3,000, 4,000 visitors a month, and about 5% of them sign up. So that's roughly 60, a little more, 1 to 2 sign-ups per day. And about 5% of them goes to freemium or paid. Most to freemium or the free version. We have a free version. And that means that the rate is not good enough. It could be better. And we, as usual, you have to discuss quantity or quality. Because if you have about, let's say, 2 to 5% who are signing up either to freemium or paid, then you can just increase how many is put in at the beginning of the funnel. But maybe, and this is where we are still working a little also, how much money to spend on advertising and inbound and everything. Maybe it would be better to get the right 1,000 users where you have 10% converting instead of 5.
Got it. Okay.
And this is where we're experimenting at the moment. The sign-up rate is lower than we would like to, but we are aware of some challenges, both in terms of are we pulling in the right audience? Are we telling them the right things to make them happy and engaged, etc.? And do we really manage to give them one aha moment in their first 30 minutes with the platform?
Okay.
That's where we work.
Got it. So would I be right to maybe assume if there are 100 visitors coming to your website, through various mechanisms, 5% of them will probably click on the sign up, and about 5% of that, maybe 1% of the total visitors are essentially entering into the free trial or the freemium every month, right? Which means if you increase the funnel at the top a lot more, you will still get a trickle effect, on your listings, which is why you need to make it a lot more easier to onboard, a lot more easier to activate, and you'll have to retain them, because if you lose them, then the effort that you took to put them into the top of
It's
the funnel will
wasted.
go away.
Yes.
Yeah, it's all. Yeah. Let me ask one last question about abuse prevention. How did you think about abuse prevention? Maybe to the audience, who may not be necessarily aware of trial abuse or prevention of these abuse. Maybe if you could give a quick spiel of what that is and what did you build and why did you build it?
Yeah. First of all, what we could see is that what our application does is that it actually makes it possible to present video content to people.
Uh-huh.
And one of the biggest worries we have is clearly that people are presenting inappropriate content or illegal content or content where they do not have the IPs, etc.
Uh-huh.
So we made sure that the trial we create can only create private platforms. And that means that they can, in theory, upload anything. They can link to YouTube or Vimeo because we have built-in converter, sort of integration for that. And that's fine, but they can only publish it privately so that they need to know your email address. So in this way, we are limiting the problem with prevention. And that says you need to have a paid account in order to create public content on our platform.
Okay.
Otherwise, we would not be able, when let's say Disney comes and asks you have videos of ours, and then we can take them down and we can say, yes, we've taken them down. And this is the guy or girl who did it, because when we have a credit card, we have a reasonable ID of a person.
Got it. Okay.
Not 100%, but it's good enough so that they will not go after us. So that's the first part. The second part, you also heard that in what I said before, that is we're sending out emails. If they have engaged with a credit card, we're actually also able to send out text messaging across the globe at a cost, because we have some cost that we're charging on to the customers for the text messaging. But what is really the challenge here is that if they could send if they could invite all the people they wanted, they could use us for sending spam. And in this way, they would be sending out emails to anyone in the world using our mail service. So it would be our mail service who potentially got blacklisted from different spam engines, and worst case, SendGrid, which is our provider, Twilio SendGrid, they will throw us out. So that's why fraud prevention in startups in application like ours is something you need to build in from the beginning.
Got it. And I think I'm seeing the trend in many of the PLG companies out there. I'm seeing like 3 or 4 trends, and maybe you can confirm, from the first trend is don't allow social logins, because you're essentially selling it to companies. Why do you want to have, social logins like Gmail or Yahoo or Outlook or other such social logins? Even Twitter, for that matter, is getting more and more in the B2C space. That's okay, but not so much in the B2B space, right? I think that's one trend where you're essentially trying to block them from signing up or using your personal accounts. The second trend I'm seeing, is, as you mentioned, that they had to be a paid customer to be able to use, some of the premium things, right? And I'm seeing a more and more of a trend of free trial, but put your credit card, or reverse trial, but put your credit card, to be able to go really identify. We'll not charge you, but at least we will know that you can use the premium content or the premium features that we have it, so that there's no abuse. So there's lesser abuse, and you're able to do that.
This is, I can understand that, because the credit card for a number of either premium features or stuff that could be misused is our guarantee that the person is reasonably sound and has access to the code or verification system or whatever that is linked to the card they used. And, we're using Stripe as a payment processor, and we have to admit that they're pretty good in terms of fraud detection and misuse of cards and things like that. So using that as an additional screening in addition to the email and the domains is very important.
Got it. Okay. So that's the second bucket. The third bucket that I was very curious and very interested when you walked me through a couple of weeks back was you're blocking malicious domains, malicious email IDs, temporary inboxes. And that's something that's very unique. I've not seen that being done, that more frequently in even in large PLG companies. They use third-party services. There are several of them. But the infrastructure that you built for doing all of that, that's simple. That's, almost 99% effective. So could you tell me a little more about why did you go about blocking malicious domains? How did you even find out that that's something that's happening?
Initially, it was due to HubSpot.
Okay.
Because what we did was that we have created, you can call it a game plan for the marketing email automation based on a free trial.
Yeah.
And that meant, you have 14 days, you get an email on welcome, then the next day you get something. On day 4, if you did this, you did get this version. If you did that, you get that version. And then when you get to around, I think it was day 10 or 11, we send you a reminder, hey, you haven't converted yet. That's not what we're saying, but the idea is like, you have 3-4 days left in your trial. Is there anything we can do for you? Do you want to book a meeting? Do you need an extension or whatever? So we're trying to do that. And what we saw was that suddenly a lot of these trials, they bounced after 48 hours.
Okay.
Because some of these temporary addresses, they go for 8, 24, 48, up to maybe a week, I think are the longest. And that meant we said, you know what? If a person is signing up with an email like this, we don't want to talk to them. It's fine. They use Hotmail or Gmail, whatever, but they need to do something that is legal and that is, of the other ones are also legal, sorry, that is real. That's a real address that we will normally be able to catch them on. Because otherwise, we are losing the track. We're losing the ability to say, hey, Christian, you signed up and you did one course really fast and you didn't come back. Is there anything we can do for you? Was there something you missed? Do we just need a little understanding of how we do user management, group management, content management, whatever? Because then we would have something to talk about and we could reach out. And in most cases, let's say 90%, we didn't give a response, but we could see the email was delivered and we could see that they didn't, other email lists, they didn't opt out of the product news they were invited to because they created a free trial, etc. So they were sort of hang around, but they didn't want to engage. But we could see when it was job mail and some of the other ones, they just died. And then we said, you know what? We don't want to let you do this. You need to give us something that we can be emailing to consistently. And then we had a couple of experiences with some certain domains, both in terms of countries and email domains, which we put on our own internal list. And then we found out that some people, they use these temporary email domains or spam domains, they pop up all the time. So we found one service that could give us a really good estimate if a domain and an email was spam or bot. Then we also integrated with HubSpot features on top. And we are just about putting the SendGrid verification that we can also get into production. So that way we have sort of like different levels of it. And the thing is, when people are signing up for a free trial and they come with, let's say, a temporary email we have knowingly blocked, they will receive a message, sorry, Christian, you cannot sign up with yopmail.com.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's fair because you're blocking them at the very outset rather than just allowing them and then disabling their account after a little while. So by the way, Christian, our conversations about abuse prevention was so inspirational that we, in fact, decided to invest quite a bit on abuse prevention. And this is what we found, right? So here are some of the statistics, or listeners, if you are interested in something of this sort. We have seen somewhere between 55 to 60% of all the signups that are coming to us right now are from abuse, or malicious domains or temporary inboxes, duplicate emails. For example, Christian at uQualio.com versus Christian +1 at uQualio.com. These are email appendages, and these are just duplicate. They are the same Christian. It's just that Google and Exchange or Office 365 allows you to keep on adding +1, +2, +3, and so on and so forth. But it's the same mailboxes. So we have seen somewhere between 55 to 60% of all signups essentially happen to be in these 3 or 4 buckets. Wow. And we checked with 50 plus SaaS companies who are PLG, and all of them have pretty much the same traffic. The bigger ones have a lot more traffic coming in from bots. Bots are essentially signing up to your product and then they go away. They sign up to your product and go away. Essentially, the bigger that you are, and if you're a PLG self-serve enable, bots can actually go through to the sign-up process and then abandon, your account. So behind the scenes, you can incur a lot of COGS. The hosting cost will increase because of the increased amount of signups. So, which is why, with your inspiration, with with the interesting conversation that we had. We've started to invest quite a bit on the abuse prevention aspect. So thank you for that.
Yeah, my pleasure. The thing is, we don't log when people are being rejected. Actually, maybe we should start doing that. What we can see though is that people cannot spell Gmail. It's only 5 letters, but it can be spelled in multiple ways, and people, they don't read it, even though that we are telling them, we have now sent, your account will be activated. You will have an email you can click on if you cannot find it, and it will be sent to christian@giaiml.com.
Yeah.
And they don't see it.
Yeah.
It's right in their face in large, capital, bold letter face, but they don't see it.
This has been a very interesting conversation. Thank you so much, Christian, for your time. We are a 1 hour, into our podcast, and then we will figure out a way to maybe take small snippets of these things and cut that through. Appreciate your time, and thank you always for the inspiration. Look forward to keep on connecting with you.
Of course. Thank you very much. It's been a pleasure, and I hope that people learned a little and got some inspiration and some things not to do as part of a startup journey.
Absolutely. And we'll add the show notes, we'll add the PLG model, and we'll probably add a little bit of things about the abuse prevention that you've done and all of that. Again, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
And I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording at this moment.
Thank you very much.